It starts with an itch and a tingle, and then it builds and expands. And suddenly, all at once, my legs won't let me stand. I scratch till my fingers go numb.
Welcome everybody to this episode of Suicide Sucks. Now we're still on the road trip and I am in, where am I? I'm in Gaydon. I'm getting confused now, I've been everywhere. I'm in Gaydon and I'm here with Mark Taylor. And Mark is the director of Men Walking and Talking, and he has a massive passion for improving men's mental health. He's had his own mental health battles in the past and feels that being both a director and a walk leader of the group has helped him to evolve. Excuse me. So, Mark, welcome to the camper van.
Thank you very much.
And just so everybody knows, because people like to know what we're having, Mark's got coffee.
I have.
With one sugar.
I have.
And I've got tea, of course, because I don't like coffee. And Ozzy, again, you may hear him jump down and go and have a drink of water, which might be a bit alarming for people because it's quite a strange sound when he's lapping his water. So if you do hear that, that's what it is. So Mark, you might know this already, but I always start with the question, what has been one of your darkest days?
Darkest days? I wouldn't necessarily say I've had dark days, but I've certainly had days where the world gets too much and the world gets on top. I would say probably in recent times, 2021, I've had anger issues throughout my adult life in various forms, but when it started to affect my work life, I realised I needed to do something about it, because it's a job that I'm really, really passionate about, and I've been there for a long, long time, and it's a great job and a great company to work for. But when my sort of occasional anger outbursts would kind of manifest, and it got to a disciplinary kind of a stage, that I was concerned for my position, and that really, really scared me. So whilst away on one of my regular business trips to Scotland, I kind of got to the hotel where I was staying and thought, I've got to do something about this. I have to do something about this. So I just jumped online and just typed in sort of anger management therapy for where I was living at the time in Leamington Spa. And you just get these lists of men, women, faces, whatever, and I just kept scrolling down until I saw a face that I thought, oh, she looks friendly.
Really?
Yeah. Clicked on it, there was a phone number, and I rang it immediately.
Wow.
Just straight away I thought, just do it now, because if you don't do it now, you're not going to do it. So I did it, and I left a message, put the phone down, and I just felt this kind of weight go, right, that's step one. It's a good start. Right, go and have a shower. So I did. And then when I came back from having a shower, I'd got a missed call and an answer phone message. And I was like, oh, okay. And it was this therapist, or psychotherapist actually, called Hayley. And I was like, oh, do I ring back? Yeah. So I did. So I rang back, and we had a very brief conversation, and she basically said, like, how can I help? So I very, very briefly bullet pointed kind of what I just started this podcast with, really, and sort of said, look, I need to talk to somebody about the issues I'm facing. All right, she said. So, like a lot of therapists, excuse me, like a lot of therapists will work, they will start with a free session to see whether or not therapist and me can work together. So we did. Went to her house in her office, and we had this initial conversation, and we kind of agreed. I agreed to sign up for, I think it was like a 10-week program. So I immediately undertook that kind of a journey, and it was initially, at one point I nearly backed out, because I just thought, oh my God, I've got to sit in a room with a complete stranger and unpack my life, and I don't know whether I'm ready to do that. And I really got cold feet. And then I remember being in my local pub and a friend could see I was a bit troubled or something on my mind. He's like, "You all right, mate?" And I thought, "Oh, do you know what? Brad's a good guy." Yeah. So I spoke to my friend and he said, "Right, you listen to me. Don't you dare cancel that. Just don't. You've got to do it. And if you do it, you've got to go in and do it 110%. Like, you've got to rip all the band-aids off, you've got to open all the boxes, and you've got to get it all out. Because otherwise, you're just going to come back, and you're just going to come back." So that was kind of how it all kind of began, and I kind of embarked on that journey.
That's really interesting. Just go back a bit for me. You know, like, what made you get to the point that... Because there must be a lot of people out there that have anger issues.
Yep.
But, you know, everybody's got a bit of a bad temper and,
Yep.
you know, it's like, so, you know, what got you to the point where you thought, no, this isn't acceptable?
I think, as I said at the start, I think it was because I think for the first time in my life, and these weren't like violent anger, these were just like, you know, having a snap but in an inappropriate manner, and it's in work. And I think because my behaviour was putting my life, not my life, that's not the right word, putting my position of work, and therefore that could massively, if I lost that job, you know, oh my days. So I think because my behaviour was potentially having a massive impact on my life and where I lived and my life that I had, it was like, hang on a minute, something needs to change, and I don't know what it is. I don't understand what's going on. So that was kind of what prompted me to want to make that change, because it terrified me. It absolutely terrified me. I had a disciplinary, and then like a couple of 3 days later, I had an initial disciplinary, and then a couple of days later I was due to then have a proper sit down with my boss and discuss, you know, the future, if you like. And on the morning that was due to take place, I had a phone call from a customer in Scotland. They had a massive breakdown and I had to go. So he was like, "Go on then, off you go, I'll see you." And he was, honestly, he's never spoken to me the way he did that morning. And that terrified me, because he wasn't nasty, but we're such good friends, me and my boss. He spoke to me like he was livid, and I've never seen him like that, and it really scared me. So all the way to Scotland, like whenever I go to Scotland, I travel there quite a lot with work. And when I travel, I'm a podcast listener, I'm a music listener, I'm a steering wheel drummer, banging around in the cab, having a proper blast, you know? And I think I drove all the way to Scotland in utter silence.
Oh, gosh.
Which probably wasn't a good thing to do, because I just had all this stuff rattling around. I'm going to lose my job. Oh my God, panic. So ultimately, that was what then drove me to make that phone call to kind of reach out for the therapy.
Wow.
You know?
And tell us about that then. I mean, how does a psychotherapist go about?
It honestly, it felt a lot like this. It was just two people sat in a room having a chat. It wasn't the stereotypical image I'd built up in my head of, I don't know, like sat in a chair with a light shining on you, pointing at you, going, "Oh, this and this and this." And it was literally just this woman sat with a notepad, glass of water, me sat on a lovely couch, really nice, relaxed environment in her house, and just talking.
Yeah.
So tell me about your. She started with like, tell me about your family life, and tell me about this, and you know, and then you kind of start to go into the different little things, and then you'd see her making notes, and then the next time she'd be like, "Oh, in the last session we discussed such and such, and tell me about that," and slowly over the sort of, I think we did 8 weeks in person, and then COVID came along and we had to do the last 2 or 3 like over Zoom.
Right.
But by then we were like well into the, and we'd unpacked quite a lot at that stage, you know. But it was, I actually enjoyed and really looked forward to the sessions. I really did. Like sometimes I'd get in the car, I'd get in the van rather, and I'd kind of drive home, and I'd just, you know, sit and kind of chew the fat in my head over what had gone on, or sometimes I didn't. I'd just go and have a pint or go and see a friend or whatever. But a couple of times I vividly remember getting in the van and driving home, and I don't know, my phone would connect and it'd start playing random songs, and then a random song would come on, and I'd have to pull over. I couldn't see where I was driving. I'd utterly fall to pieces.
Really?
And I'm proper sobbing.
Yeah.
And then within a minute, gone. And you kind of go, well, okay, what was all that about? And I know now, because of doing what I now do, that's just, you've just sat in a room and spoken about some real, like personal stuff from your life that you haven't probably ever spoken about or haven't for years. And this is just the body going, hang on a minute, you need to process this, so we're going to give you this. Whoosh, and kind of out it all comes, and that happens. I think one of the things that, so as a typical man, growing up and being a young adult, if ever anything made me emotional, it was like a source of absolute shame. You just like turn away, or you didn't want to cry in front of anyone. Yeah. Whereas now, like all my family and all my friends will tell you, like at the drop of a hat, I will just, the waterworks will come on and I don't give a monkeys. I will cry in front of anyone and I just don't care. You all right? Yeah, I'm fine. It's just my body it's just release. And that, it's not an I don't see it as a source of shame or embarrassment now. I see it as a source of my body doing what it needs to do for me.
Is what it is.
Of course.
Yeah, it is.
But I don't know. I don't know. As human beings, we're sort of, I don't know. We're conditioned, that, especially with men.
Absolutely.
We're conditioned that crying is, what are you crying for? Get a grip of yourself.
Yeah, man up. Yeah,
God,
that awful phrase.
So
I know.
much. I hate that phrase so much.
So when you, I don't know if you probably don't want to go into detail, but did you start to understand why you had anger issues?
I think looking back, I think that anger stemmed from a multitude of emotional events and sort of traumatic events that I just never dealt with. So my body just, I don't know, if things didn't quite go my way, or somebody said something that I wasn't particularly enamoured with, and at that time I wasn't in a good frame of mind, then it would just come out as, there'd be no pause or thought or rational thinking. It would just be immediately a response, but an angry response, with a bit of sweary or a bit of, like, it was never physical or anything like that, but it would always be a bark.
I was just about to say, like a reactive
it would
dog.
always be like a bark.
Said bark.
Yeah, it would literally be like that,
Yeah.
And as a manager, speaking to an employee, that's just not, So I think I've thought about it a lot over the years since doing that, and I do think that there's never been any one specific thing that's given me anger issues. I just think it's years and years and years of, everybody has trauma in their life, everybody has traumatic events, but people normally speak about them. And I never did. Like literally, I wouldn't speak to a soul. I just keep it all buried deep inside, and that has to go somewhere. And I understand that now as well, there was, so I think for me, the biggest takeaway, or there was two biggest takeaways. One of the biggest takeaways from therapy was just, it enabled me to unpack, unpick, talk about and deal with the things that have gone on in my life. All sorts of things. We all have issues that go on in our lives. But there was, so just to cycle back to the first session. So in the first session, she asked for like a few things that, can you give me a list of a few things that you think have been quite key in your life in terms of events, whatever. So we made a list of different bits and bobs, like you do. And then week 5 or 6, I think, we were talking about some things, and I just dropped into the conversation about a car crash I'd been involved in back in 1997. And I saw her turn her head. She kind of went, oh, right. So 10 minutes or so later, she said, that's not on your list. And I kind of went, well, no, because it happened in 1997 and I had some quite serious injuries because of it and a lot of time off work. But I have no recollection of the accident at all because it was that serious. I was unconscious for quite some time. I don't have any memory of it whatsoever.
Right.
And she's like, right, okay, that's interesting. So made a couple of little scribbly notes and then moved off the subject. And then in the next session, she brought it up about oh, no. Yes, she did. I brought it up in terms of, she started concentrating on some of the, can you think of any instance where you've felt sort of anxious or angry while you're at work? And I was kind of like, I said, oh, actually, do you know, yeah, there are some kind of, like, whenever we occasionally have lots of contractors in doing bits and bobs of work and stuff, and if they've got loud, like, cutty, sawey equipment going on, I can sometimes feel a little bit thing. And she kind of went, oh, right, okay. So she kind of made a little note and she said,
oh, my word.
Yeah, she said, can we cycle back to the car accident? And I said, yeah, of course we can. In my head, I'm like, okay. And in my head, I'm just going, well, this was 1997. And this is now 2021.
Yeah.
Where are we going with this? But I'm happy to talk about it. What's your memory of the accident? And I said, well, got in a car with some colleagues from work and went for a drive. Idiot overtook a load of cars on a blind bend. Last second, he tried to move. Bang. My side of the car took all the impact into the windscreen, yada, yada, yada. But I've got no memory of any of that. It's all what I've been told.
Right.
And then, like, my next waking memory is like 36 hours later. Surgery a few days later, yada, yada, yada. And she's like, oh, right, okay. And I'll never forget this moment. She said, do you know, were you trapped in the car? And I went, yeah. And I went, yeah, I was, yeah.
Yeah.
And she said, how did they get you out? And I went, oh, they had to cut the
Cut
roof
you
off
out
the
and
thing.
oh, my God.
And as those words left my mouth, I just had this, you know when people talk about a light bulb moment?
Yeah.
Well, that was inside my brain at like the most powerful incandescent bulb ever. And it just suddenly, everything made sense in terms of and I just sat there in utter silence going, wow. And she went, that's interesting. So, you know, cutting equipment, sawing equipment, these noise frequencies. And I was like, wow, okay. And then we kind of moved on to some other bits and bobs and went away. And then the next day at work, I'd usually go in and have a chat with my boss after each session as well at work, just to let him know how things are going. Because so to cycle back again, when I came back from Scotland, straight into the office for the disciplinary.
Yes.
And I said, before we go into this, and I could see he was still a bit, you know,
yeah.
I said, before we go into this, can I just tell you something that I've done? And I said what I was doing, and he completely went, he kind of went, okay, mate, that's impressive. That's good. That's sort of the thing you need to be doing. What can we do to help? Blah, 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 blah. And it kind of changed things. Anyway, so the next day when I went to work and I was talking to Rob about this kind of potential link between that car accident and these feelings I have around these kind of bits of equipment and stuff, he was kind of, oh, that's really interesting, da, 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 da. And then we just moved on with our daily work. And then blow me, I'm sat at my desk a couple of hours later and he comes in and he's got an angle grinder out.
Yeah.
And I sat at my desk and this angle grinder went and I could feel this, like, and it was something that I'd, in inverted commas, never felt before, but I had.
Consciously.
But I did, I don't know how to explain it. That moment when he did the saw, I had this feeling inside of me that made me feel anxious and started to become anger, but then quickly went away because I went, that's why. Whereas previously I didn't have the link.
Yeah.
So the noise of chopping saw, angle grinding, whatever, would bring these things on. I didn't know what they were.
No.
And it would become, and then all of a sudden I'd gone from working away at my bench and I'm happy, and all of a sudden I'm like, why am I, and if anybody came to me for something and I was in that headspace, that could be,
yeah. Oh my
but
God,
I don't know why.
Absolutely incredible.
It's bonkers.
And the fact that you're now aware of that
It's not an issue anymore.
it changes
Yeah,
everything.
it's not an issue.
That's amazing.
And the other great thing as well, my boss, bless him, he'll come in and he'll come and knock on my office door and he'll be open and he'll knock on the door and be like, you might want to shut the door for the next 20 minutes, mate. And I'm like, oh, okay, no problem, boss. But because I know, we had some contractors in last year building some, building some stuff at work, and they had an industrial chop saw cutting like sections of aluminium. And I knew they were there, and I've got all this new knowledge, and I was like, it's going to be fine. But the frequency that this was happening was a much, really, really high pitch. Oh, and that I found difficult, even with the knowledge I've now got. And there were times where I had to just go for a walk for a couple of minutes because that frequency, that really high pitched cutting noise, was just really putting me on edge and like, whoa, this is really weird. Why am I not being able to deal with this noise? And I'd come back and I'd sit down and I could put up with it for about 10, 15 minutes. And I'm like, nope, brain ain't taking this one. And I just think it's a frequency thing that certain, I don't know what it is, you know, certain really high pitched frequencies have got a thing about them.
That is, I mean, incredible for anybody listening who may potentially have anger issues. You know, really important to look at when you're feeling like that and if there is a trigger.
Yeah.
I mean, that's mind blowing. It really is.
I mean, I'm not attributing all of my past issues to that one event at all, but it was revelationary and it changed my life. It really did change my life, or that part of my life that I know that I've got this thing in my brain that makes a link back to that event in 1997. But the fact that I know it now and I can understand it, I'm in control of it now. I'm in control of it, and not it previously was massively no.
Yeah.
So I think for me the therapy journey was definitely it was definitely transformative in terms of enabling me to visit uncomfortable events from my past, but just in a way that there wasn't anything that needed to be massively dealt with. It was just sitting and talking about them.
Yeah.
Because I never had.
Yeah.
I never had.
Like so many people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So many people.
Yeah.
So how that's honestly, I just think that that'll be amazing for a lot of people to hear that experience. And, you know, okay, psychotherapy isn't going to work for everybody,
Absolutely
but
not.
it may work for somebody.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
certainly worked for you. How, that was in 97, did you say?
The accident.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're now 2024, obviously. Can you tell us a bit about how you got involved, how you found Men Walking and Talking, how you got involved with that, what brought you to them?
So 2022, my sister was recovering from breast cancer, and we're quite a big, me, my brother and my dad are quite big hikers and walkers. So she was like on the phone, 6 weeks notice to me, going, you need to get out there and do a big silly hike and raise some money for the cancer charity. And I'm like, yep, no problem. So I sat down, put a massive crazy route together for me and my brother, and we went off and did this mad 36-mile hike starting at 3:15 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
So I walked for like 18 hours straight and raised we raised mad amounts of money. So during the course of doing that, obviously I'm sharing loads of stuff on the socials, and a friend commented on this thing, and then I'd noticed he was taking part in a charity walk for this organisation called Men Walking and Talking. I was like, oh, that's cool. What's all that about? And I guess to cycle back a little bit, for a number of years, I've always been a passionate advocate of anything to do with men's mental health. But this came along at just the right time So I contacted my mate and I'm like, oh, what's this Men Walking and Talking thing you're involved in? And he was like, oh, you know, we're doing this 3 counties walk, raising money and awareness and stuff. And I was like, all right, cool. So I made a donation to that, and then my brother and I did our big walk. No, this was before that, I got to speak to Dan. So I then said, so you run walks around the country? Oh, wicked, I'd love to get involved in one of them. Is there one anywhere near me? And he was like, whereabouts are you now? Told him where I was, and he was like, nah, there's not any near you. He said, but mate, you need to speak to Dan, because you're a massive advocate of this kind of thing, and you love the outdoors. Marriage made in heaven, mate. You need to speak to Dan. So he put me in touch with Dan. We had a conversation, and within about 20 minutes, I'm like, oh, okay, looks like I'm starting a group in Kenilworth. Fantastic. So this conversation took place just before my big walk with my brother and his walk that he was doing with the group. So we kind of agreed to reconvene once we'd both got our challenges out of the way, and then have another conversation and then kind of go for it. So when he asked me, do you want to start a group? I didn't even think about it. I just went, yes, 100%, yes. And he's like, right, I'll send you some stuff, and then put the phone down, and I'm like, I've got no idea I'm going to do this, but my God, I'm going to do it. So like with all of our groups that start, you know, you have that initial conversation. You kind of check that the person that you're talking to has got doing it for the right reasons. They've got the right motivation. A lot of them have got, you know, interesting backstories, which is a great thing for kind of shared experience. And then you literally you pick a date. You pick a you know, a car park or a wherever that you're going to meet every week, and you just turn up. So unfortunately, my start date of my walk was the 8th? I wrote it down. 8th September 2022, the day the Queen passed away.
Oh, gosh.
So I sat on this car park full of like all excitement and stuff, waiting for my first walker to turn up. And then my sister messaged me and goes, oh, the Queen's passed away. And I'm like, oh my God, no. And I am not for 1 second attributing the fact nobody came that night to the fact that the Queen passed away. I don't know. Maybe there's some, I don't know, something nice there, but they didn't. And then I turned up the following week and I had one. And then the next week I had the same guy again. And then the next week it was two. And that first week is the only week I've had to walk on my own in 2 years. My group celebrated its second birthday last Thursday. And the group in Kenilworth has it's just exploded. It's
really?
Absolutely.
So how many people tend to come now?
24 last Thursday.
Really?
24 last Thursday, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It is.
And do they come from further afield than Kenilworth?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Coventry, Rugby, Nuneaton. Out not this way, kind of Wellesbourne and lots of different places.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is absolutely fantastic. And with the men walking and talking groups, because there's lots of them, aren't there?
25 now, I think, around the country.
And are they all around the country? Yeah.
All over. As far north as Penrith, as far south as like the south end of Wales.
Right.
Out on the east coast, in kind of Ipswichy way, and we've got
And do they all have a different time and?
No, so we have all of our walks. They are a day in the week, Monday to Friday, and they all start at 7 o'clock, with the exception of a couple that have got various childcare stuff, maybe that they can't start as a group at 7 o'clock, so they're like a 7:30.
Okay.
And one's changed theirs to a 6:30 because they tried it for 7. They tried a 7 o'clock start for a few weeks and it didn't seem to work, so they moved it. But generally across the board, all of our walks start at 7 p.m. Yeah.
Okay, but they could be on different nights.
Yeah. I mean, we've got, it's weird, Mondays we've got, I think, 3, Tuesdays we've got 1, Wednesdays loads, Thursdays loads, and Friday we've got a couple, you know.
Yeah.
It just seems to be that Thursday seems to be the most popular day for for people to want to start their group.
Dark at that time. Do you still just
don't care.
Oh, fantastic.
I've got hundreds of pictures on my phone of the lads on my group, like at the end of a walk, absolutely dripping wet. We go out. The only time we won't walk is if the weather is dangerous, so high wind or the potential of, like, you know, lightning or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I sat on the car park in 22, like in kind of late in the year, like maybe November time. And I pulled up on the car park and it was a bit windy and it was bitterly cold and it was chucking it down with rain. And I'm sitting there going, nah, nobody's coming tonight. And the next thing, there's like 13 blokes stood in the pouring rain going, right, where are we going tonight? And we go off for a walk. And the conversations and the smiles at the end. And they're absolutely soaked through.
But you feel alive.
But they don't care.
Yeah.
You know, they just don't care.
And how long, generally? Are they all different, I suppose? How long's the walk?
Yeah, it varies. Like the summertime, it's nice to stay at that bit longer. Our standard walk length is like 2.5-ish miles, kind of about an hour. But I've gone out especially in a really nice summer night, like it could be out till 9 o'clock. You know, because people just enjoying being out in nature and out in the nice weather. Yeah, as soon as the clocks move and the weather gets a bit whatever, then the pace tends to pick up and it's a quick circuit around the streets and then get back and get dry. But yeah, it never ceases to amaze me. I mean, not just my group in Kenilworth, but it never ceases to amaze me when the weather's not quite great. The amount of people that turn out, and just because it's important for them.
Yeah,
it's that focal point for their week, you know. And new people, we've had a real growth spurt this year since January. Not just across a lot of our groups. There seem to be lots of new people coming on a regular basis, which is always great because it means the work that walk leader's doing in that area is working because it's reaching new people because they're turning up. But we've also seen a real increase in like inquiries about, I'd like to start a walk in my area. You know, we've got a page on we've got a tab on the website that kind of says, would you be interested in starting a group? Fill out this form. That comes through on an email. And I've got 2 phone calls to make this afternoon because we've had inquiries coming in from different places around the country because these guys are interested in starting a group, you know, where they live, which is great.
And are there any, you know, requirements to be a?
Not really, no. We've discussed at length like whether we should formalise the process. We try to make what we do at Men Walking and Talking as barrier-free as possible. So there's no paperwork involved, there's no money involved. You just turn up.
Yeah.
If this is where the meet point is, just turn up. For a walk leader, when they inquire, you know, they'll send a bit of a spiel about themselves and why they want to start a group, and then you have that conversation, you know, usually on the phone, and it's like, you know, hi mate, good to speak to you, you know, thanks for inquiring. And my first question generally is, why do you want to start a group where you are? And just put it over to them. And then you just listen. And you just listen to the, you know, and it becomes apparent pretty quick if they're really genuine. You go, oh, this is great. This really sounds like they've got a really interesting backstory of recovery or of coming through adversity or whatever. And then the other thing that we've definitely learnt in the directorship is that the thing that we need, that's really important right at the start, but then the other thing is that they've got the passion and commitment to do the legwork at the beginning in terms of promotion, because if you don't promote, nobody's going to come. You know, so social media, we've got leaflets. Here you go, there's some leaflets, putting those out around your local town. Join as many local Facebook groups as you can and spread the word, and then that first night you've got a chance of not being on your own. And then the group kind of grows from there. And then it's always then about, after a walk, whether you've been on your own or whether you've had a couple of 3 guys, quick selfie, quick spiel, and then it links the events together. We're going to start a walk, we're going to start a walk, we're going to start a walk. Oh, you have started, oh, you've got people. And then get the community engaged, you know.
That's brilliant. And like, take your group, what kind of age range is that?
Everything from kind of like early 20s to retired and beyond. Right. Literally, yeah.
So it is for all age men,
It is, yeah. And that is the thing, it is 18 and over, you know. It has to be, it just has to be, you know.
That's almost the one thing that you can't compromise on, isn't it, in terms of the barrier,
that's the only kind of entry thing that we've got, is that you've got to be 18 or over, you know. And we've got a strict policy around sort of alcohol and drugs, you know, on or anything to do with the walk, for obvious reasons. But yeah, it's it's an incredible thing. I sometimes get lost for words in trying to explain just how much being involved in this does for me.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't very often, I don't have the time, I don't very often get the chance to get a bit introspective about the last 2 years, because it's always on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. What are we working at now? Well, I've got these phone calls to make, I've got these phone. But then when you go and do the event we did at the weekend over in Shropshire with like 20 other blokes like stomping over the hills in Shropshire, you do get time to kind of go, oh, this is pretty special. This is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then you sit and do things like this, and it just as you're sitting here, you kind of get the chance to go, yeah, okay, that's been a pretty wild 2 years.
Yeah.
And look what's been achieved. And occasionally I do give myself the chance to go, yeah, look what I have actually achieved since I've been part of this organisation.
Absolutely.
You know, just even with my group in Kenilworth, what I've achieved there, and then so I started the group in September 22, and by December of that year I'd been invited to become a director, because I wasn't doing enough. I loved running the walk, but I could see so much potential in what Men Walking and Talking stood for, that I was like, I basically just kept banging on Dan's door going, I need to do more, I need to do more, I need to do more.
God, I bet he didn't turn you away.
And bless him, I think he just got sick. He's like, look, the only way we can do this is if you make you a director. Do you want to be a director? And I'm like, yes, please. Right, brilliant. There you go, you're a director. Way. You know,
Fantastic.
You know, and I get to work with the other three guys as well, because they're just, all three of them are absolute legends. You know, and they all bring, like the four of us, we all bring different skills and different stories to the table. You know, like two of the directors are both ex-squaddies, so they've got some incredible stories behind them, an incredible background, you know. And we've got quite a military, that's not right. We've got quite a lot of ex-servicemen that take part in our groups across the country, you know, and we've had quite a few conversations with other organisations that support, you know, ex-servicemen in various ways. So what we do kind of resonates with, specifically it resonates with those people, which is always good.
Well, I interviewed Tom from VINT, which is Veterans in Need Together.
Oh, okay.
So that they're, he's in near Morley, Leeds, and it's a spin-off from another group called MINT, which is Men in Need Together. And then I also interviewed Cherie from WISH, which is Women Inspiring Strength and Hope, and they're they're kind of like sister groups.
Right.
But the reason they set up VINT was because, you know, the thing about people that have been in the military or ex-service people, it's one of those things that you really need to talk to people that know what you're talking about and that have experienced what you've experienced. It is a slightly different kind of niche, isn't it? That
it really is. It's like, so like occasionally the conversation. So we run the walking groups obviously around the country, but on a Tuesday night we also do an online Zoom, which is basically the online platform for our walking groups. And we tend to get a lot of guys coming to that haven't got a walk in their area, or they just can't access one. So we run that every Tuesday night, and
that's good to know as well, because there are people who
it's a brilliant platform.
Who
the
can't
Zoom
go out. Yeah.
And that room, like for example, last night was a very, very relaxed and chilled room. There were like 5 of us in the room that are quite regular, so it was just a chat really. It was a catch up. But occasionally you'll get people come along that they don't even put the camera on, they don't even put the microphone on, they'll just sit in it for a week, and then they'll come back the next week, same again, and they come back week 3 and the camera's on. Hi mate, how you doing? And you have a chat. But from time to time we've had some people come in there, and you open the Zoom up and the people come in and you take a look at that and you go, ooh, okay mate. So you kind of go around the room, hi, regular people, hello, whatever your name is. Hello, sir. You know, how you doing? Welcome to the group. You know, what can we do to help? And voila, out it all comes, like proper trauma, like real serious trauma. Like a couple of times we've had people in there that are like, you go, right, I'm a bit concerned about you because you are properly on the edge. You're saying things that are, well, you know, kind of going along the lines of like a bit kind of suicide and stuff. But then we get to the end of the session and you start to think, right, I might need to keep you back a second and have a chat.
Yeah.
And then you'll go to the guy and you'll be like, how you feeling after that? And they'll be like, oh my God. And you literally see the shoulders drop and a massive breath come out. And they're like, mate, that's incredible. I did not know that I needed to do that. And you're like, that's fantastic to hear. Do you need anything from us? Do you know what? I'm really good. I'll see you next week. And then you never see them again.
Oh, God, that's
but then you never see them again. And you kind of go, okay, that was what he needed to do that day.
Yeah.
He just needed to absolutely get this stuff out of his head. He needed it out of his head and in somebody else's head, you know? And that's occasionally, that's what that Zoom can do. You know, people can come in there with real issues and it's really lovely to see sometimes men coming in and starting to have a conversation and then just falling apart. But then almost stopping themselves because they're in you just go, no, don't stop.
Carry on.
Let that go. Seriously, let that go. You have to let that go. And they'll have a proper cry. And I mean like lose control cry. And you're like, right, just drop your camera off for a minute, go and make yourself a cup of tea, get yourself a glass of water, come back, sit down, and we'll see where you are. You know?
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it is amazing. And occasionally I host the group every week occasionally with Dan, and like a couple of weeks ago I came into the group and I was like going around the room doing all the usual thing, and then one of the guys that comes in quite regularly was like, can I just have a quick question mark? And he went, yeah, of course you can. He went, how are you? And I went, and at the time I'd actually had quite a bit of a rubbish couple of weeks, and I kind of sat there and I went, do I want to? And then there's another bit in my brain going, yeah, this is what you're here for, you muppet, get it out of you. So I kind of did, you know. I mean, so around that time I'd had some news that I'd lost a friend to suicide that lived in Wales. Right. Hadn't seen him for many, many years. He was an old school friend, but we were kind of like Facebook pals. And it's one of those things where you go over in your head and go, oh my God, why did I not? And they're crazy thoughts because you can't change anything. You can't change the past, you know. But it did hit me in terms of, like, whenever I hear, even if I don't know them, whenever I hear about men taking their lives, I don't know what it is. It really upsets me because I go to that place in my mind and go, where were you in your mind that was your only out? That was your only place.
Only option. Yeah.
That was your only option, you know? And I've always been massively affected by stories of suicide. Like two of my favourite music artists that took their lives back some years ago, like Chester Bennington from Linkin Park and Chris Cornell from Soundgarden. I could not believe how absolutely devastated, like I knew them. I don't know them. I live, you know, I've never met them. But I knew them. I had a connection with them through their music.
Yeah.
And it really, really deeply affected me to the point where, you know, whenever I hear, even now, some of their songs, they absolutely break me. But in a, I don't know, almost in a cathartic kind of a way, you know? Yeah, it's strange. It is strange.
Yeah. Well, this is, you know, what it's all about. We want to get people talking about
100%.
Suicide on this podcast.
Definitely.
So just quickly tell us, if people want to get involved with Men Walking and Talking, what's the best way for them to find you?
Facebook group, Men Walking and Talking, and website is menwalkingandtalking.co.uk. Those are the easiest ways to find out what we do, where we currently do it, you know, and if there are any men out there that don't have this kind of, you know, outlet walk in their cities and towns, then the best thing to do is go to the website. There's a starter group link on there, fill out a form, and that'll come through to myself and Dan, and you'll probably get an email or a phone call from one of us, and we can have a chat, you know. And as I said, if you go onto the Facebook page, at the top there's a pinned post with the details for the Tuesday night Zoom meeting, which is, you know, again, it's free for anybody to come along and join in.
And great for people that aren't really interested in walking as well. I mean, you've got every angle covered, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, you know. And as I said, you know, that Zoom it's a safe, secure place. You know, whatever gets discussed in there stays in there. It's very confidential, you know. And if we feel that, you know, people do need that extra kind of next step of support, then we can facilitate that, you know.
Absolutely fantastic. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me in the camper van.
It's been an absolute joy. I've really, really enjoyed it.
It starts with an itch and a tingle, and then it builds and expands. And suddenly, all at once, my legs won't let me stand. I scratch till my fingers go numb.